Howdy doody, everybody. Welcome to the Writers Hangout. My name is Konstantine Paradias, and with me today is the Rice Man himself, Evan Dahm. Hey, Evan, what's up?
Not much. Thank you for having me.
No, glad to have you. He is the creator of Rice Boy, one of my favorite fantasy comics, and currently my kids, Harrowing of Hell, and a lot of other web comics that I personally cannot recommend enough. Could you give us a rundown what you've been working on, what you've worked on, what you're working on right now?
Yeah, so the sort of through line of my career has been self-published long-term graphic novel projects online. Those include the like fantasy adventure stories Rice Boy, Order of Tales, and Vatu. I've been doing this since like 2006. For the past 3 years, I've been doing this comic Third Voice, numeral 3RD Voice, which is something I'm taking somewhat more seriously and trying to serialize in a smarter way. It's kind of a exploratory, character-driven post-apocalypse story in an invented setting full of weird non-human characters. Um,
Sounds a lot like Rice Boy.
yeah, I mean, I set up certain aesthetic starting points for myself with that book that I wasn't aware I was setting up. And there's tools that provides that I'm still interested in working with and that still have potential energy for me. But alongside all this stuff, I've also done a number of books for publishers, including Island book for first, second books, which is like a middle grade adventure thing, The Harrowing of Hell for Iron Circus, and The Last Delivery for Iron Circus, which is a sort of horror book. Um, but right now, for the past couple of years, my whole life is just third voice, basically.
Which is an excellent comic. Okay, so let's take this from the top. So first off, you're kind of living the dream, right? Self-published web comic author. You're doing your own thing. You're doing it for a living. I mean, that's a huge milestone. Like a lot of us, we never get close to that. So how did you get started with like the web comic scene? Obviously, you started at the height of it. Early aughts was.
I started at the height of a certain moment of it. So I'm teaching a class at School of Visual Arts for the past couple of years now, and the class is called Webcomics, which is a wild thing for a class to be called in 2025. But it's interesting to sort of pick apart what my career trajectory has been and to try to present something that's useful to people who don't who didn't start at the exact moment that I started. They start at other moments that have potential energy in ways that I can't see. But I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that. I think a lot of it does come down to I was sort of becoming competent in drawing and storytelling at a moment when the boom was happening. There were more and more people on the internet, but there wasn't an enormous population of like people doing long format comics,
I
really,
mean,
compared to now.
I
There
mean, there
were a
were
lot.
plenty. I mean, there were plenty that were. I mean, okay. So, bit of backstory for anyone that's not in their late 30s and is listening to this. So, web comics used to be huge on the internet, and you think they're big now with webtoons and with Tapas and Inkit and so many others. But it was actually much crazier. It was kind of like a Wild West. Everyone that could kind of draw, people who could draw very well, like Evan, people who could write very well, like Evan, people who couldn't write at all, would put out whatever they wanted. And there were a lot of flops, like it happens today, a lot of things that really hit it big, and a lot of really great things that we kept coming up and you could find kind of like diamonds in the rough in the
Yeah.
middle of all this. Like one of my favorite comics ever is Genocide Man. And it's a web comic, for example. Yours was another one. So it was a crazy time. There were no standards. You could find absolutely anything. We could go on for hours.
It's exciting, and I mean, there's a basic, just automatic logic of self-publishing to it, which does kind of get lost. A lot of people coming up now have the horizons of possibility determined for them by platforms like Webtoon, right? There are ways in which it's a much bigger thing now, webcomics. I mean, there are more webcomics being made, and there are orders of magnitude more people seeing them, but what it means is very different. You know, we don't really have that weird self-published thing at the core of it that we
Yeah, it's
used
more
to.
standardized. There are like a certain base for income streams. These kind of like limit people's creativity. I don't mean, everyone should be free to make whatever horrific thing they come up with, but also you see people being more scared to experiment, make new
Yeah.
things, make weird things.
Yeah. I mean, the whole space of the internet has gotten a lot more sort of commodified and desperate, and everybody is, life is more desperate than it was 20 years ago, I feel like generally for any
Yeah.
working artist.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. For me, um, because I don't live in one of the cool countries, it's better in the sense that because you have a greater ease of communication, you can find more opportunities if you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
But if you're, for example, in the cool countries, in the US, in Sweden, in the UK, everywhere else, it's more difficult because the competition has kind of condensed through certain points. That's how I feel. I'm sure
Mhm.
you might have like a different perspective, but I feel we got out. We got out. I'm sorry. We're just talking about your career trajectory. So you started in 2006. You
No, it's
started
relevant
putting.
though. I mean, I'm embedded in this history, This history informs what I can imagine, what I have been able to imagine making. It
Oh,
is materially bounded. And
yeah.
I disagree. Maybe at one point, America, United States was a cool country, but we're I don't know how long we can hold that title exactly.
I mean, it's
I
culturally,
know.
you guys are still ahead. You guys have all like the bigger enterprises, the big creative enterprises that are
Mm,
there. I mean, just talking from numbers, I don't.
I follow you. Yeah.
Yeah, things come and go. It's things move in circles.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so you started at a time when the idea of the webcomic wasn't standardized. You could put things out. You really didn't have anyone to answer to except your audience, right? And did you start with Rice Boy? Was Rice Boy your first thing?
It was my first like really committed thing. I was active on this. I think kind of where I learned a lot of my fundamental ideas around the medium and around like a work ethic and a career were on this website entervoid.com, which is still up. It's like a competitive comics drawing site. I was on it all through high school. It was a big part of my like conception of the medium, uh, and like the culture of basically independent comics or like genre comics generally at that time. And I learned a lot doing that. I mean, you end up drawing a lot of like fairly standard comics about guys fighting each other, which is not the most interesting thing to me, and it never was, but you'd learn fundamentals doing that. But Rice Boy was like basically I hit upon the idea that um, I'm not going to get published at this point in my career, probably. There is nothing stopping me from doing the thing that interests me. So I just sort of built a loose structure around a bunch of weird images and
So yeah, yeah,
a
you
little
do, you do, you do,
exploratory.
you do admit that in your graphic novel for Rice Boy. It does, to be honest, for something that you started as like you admit, because just to clarify from one that's listening, Evan claims in his Rice Boy graphic novel that he started improvising, and then he slowly built the setting out of getting feedback from his audience. To be honest, it's kind of strange with your style. Your stuff never feel improvisational. They never feel like you're pulling stuff, out of
Mm,
your butt, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because a lot of creators, mangakas, the Western comic book artists, other people, other writers, you can see how clumsy it is when they pull stuff out of their butt, right? And do
hmm.
the ass pull, and then suddenly, something's there that wasn't there. How do you do it? How do you do it and it doesn't feel that way? Like Rice Boy, really, with the exception of certain points that I realized that's in my third reading, felt planned out.
Yeah, with um I mean it's all about just providing spaces for yourself to where the improvisation feels more planned than it actually is. I realize in retrospect. Um Rice Boy was I had a sense of doing a big epic quest thing. There is a clear sort of typified, chosen one fulfilling a prophecy going on a quest template, right? There's a sense of where it starts and where it ends and broadly what it's interested in. These are the guideposts that can make improvisation a little more productive and a little more cohesive. However, it has been years and years since I did that one in particular. So this is a train of thought that I kind of developed doing Vatu, which was a 12-year long project, kind of an anthropological fantasy thing. There's an intense focus on some core thematic ideas of like uh, imperialism, how people are destroyed and remade by imperial power, and how their identities are constructed within and without that structure. Anyway, it's this thematic framework that provides space in which you can sort of wander around and keep it a little cohesive. But again, that's not something I was terribly aware of as I was doing Vatu. It's just something that I'm trying to codify with myself for third voice, because I just realized that after doing a bunch of these things, uh, any graphic novel of significant length is going to be a long time, a long span of time, and it's a long period of time that you're like living in it. And the idea of spending that time just executing on a point by point plan is miserable to me. It's an improvisational thing, I think, necessarily.
So do you improvise the entire way through? Do you not plan out in any part of the story?
No, no, there's a lot of planning. I don't know what I
Oh,
don't.
all right.
It's hard to pinpoint, I guess, but there's a lot of planning. But there's like the big signal things are clear enough far in advance. But so I'm wrapping up the second book of the story now, and there is a lot of stuff that I wasn't totally clear how it would connect. Um, but having the time to like serialize it live and see what it looks like and explore it as I'm making it, um, things do come up that you don't exactly see. And if your head is in it, then the things that come up fit into the larger structure fairly well. So no, there's a lot of planning, but it's I try to keep the planning kind of fluid and not too like detail-y and brittle. I try to have the details of the planning be supportive of the ideas and not the core of
I
the
understand.
role of
I
detail is tricky, but yeah,
No,
continue.
I understand. I understand what you mean, and I think it's a good process. You're telling me you came up with this like completely by yourself, right? So you're doing this. You learned this as you were doing it. The reason why I'm asking is I'll get to it, but did you figure it out as you went along?
Kind of. I mean, I ended up with a kind of like a way of thinking about this stuff, and then when you look at people talk about different narrative media, you can sort of see how they're saying similar things, like people talking about like shonen manga, the way that long-term serialized shonen manga work is basically since like Dragon Ball, uh, an artist will not really have a clear sense of the whole through line, but will build into the story basically an engine that can generate a story chapter by chapter really simply,
Yes.
right? Like Luffy is always going in this direction. He's always this kind of guy. This is his goal. Okay, we're set. He's always trying to beat the next guy. So there's little mechanisms like that anybody in serialized fiction has worked through. This is kind of just my
it's
angle
it's
on it.
just it's interesting that you mentioned this because it's a good base for a process when you're making the outline. That's why I asked you, and I notice that a lot of authors that learn to do it on the job and are working authors or working creators end up with the same kind of process that you do, where an
Oh,
outline is made, bases are created, and then you start following the diagram. And sometimes, the story, because the story is a living thing, it happens in your brain, right? Your brain is a fuzzy thing, it's unclear. It will go down different directions and go down different paths. And
Hmm.
for the life of me, I have not met a single person that's like, no, no, I don't like where this is going. We're going back to the outline. No, cancel this character development. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see kind of like how the synchronicity develops. Like there is an in between state. You can not obsessively plan out everything, and you can't just pull everything out of your butt because then both sides lies inconsistency in this very
Hmm.
weird way, essentially. That's why I'm asking for this. And it's interesting that you're mentioning all these bases. For example, like Rice Boy has this through line about the danger of power, and it's a little bit like Dune in the sense that you should be afraid of messiahs. Spatch is like this, the person
Hmm.
who's raised to think he's a messiah and he becomes like this tyrant. Vatu is like this, where you have this imperial power and this thing that everyone feels is going to save them and doesn't work out. And I think all your stories kind of have a human through line, which makes them very interesting because you have all these weird characters, but because they feel human, you don't notice it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to do that if you're going to be working with weird looking characters. To me, a big part of the appeal of working in comics is that you can decide how every little thing looks. Um, but I'm not really interested in thinking about that science fictionally. Like I don't want it to be, plausible aliens or biological plausible stuff. I want to just push the designs in interesting ways. And I also want the reader to be able to automatically follow it. So I need it extremely, on some level, extremely anthropomorphic, and I need the acting, the character acting is a very important part of cartooning to me that I don't see talked about very
How
much
do you
in
mean character acting?
like
You mean
you know, you
flourish? You mean they all have like exaggerated expression, exaggerated gestures?
basically, yeah. I mean, just how they look, how they emote as they're saying something in a panel, right?
Yeah.
It's totally analogous to like film or theater acting, but obviously it's just spatial, not temporal. Um, but it's important that I don't know, that feels like an important element of like selling it, Um, because I am aware whenever you introduce like a weird element in like a genre fiction story or anything, you're a little bit you can look at it as like incurring a debt with the reader, right? So you have to meet them halfway or you have to help help pay that off or whatever by making it transparent in other ways.
Yeah, you have to give a context, and you can either do a huge, make a huge like detour where you waste time setting this up. I'm reminded of like that one tweet that you did that was when I thought back then when you made it like I gotta talk to this guy, where you said God help me, God help me with the magic systems, or God save me from a magic system, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I gotta talk to this guy because I distinctly remember when I was seeing that part, it was the height of the time when everyone was going crazy about setting up their magic systems and like setting this up and making all this interesting. And it was around the time when fantasy became really boring.
Hmm.
And I don't mean the designs. I don't mean the spectacle. Spectacle was great. Things looked great, but it wasn't interesting. The
Hmm.
magic wasn't interesting. The fantastical elements weren't interesting. You didn't have the chaos. You didn't have the unexpected things that you had because everything had systems.
Yeah.
Everything had to work. Everything was kind of boring. So, how do you go about when you make your worlds? Do you like factor these in? Do you care to factor these in?
Hmm. No, it's exactly analogous to what we were talking about that dialectic of the planning or the riffing, It's that exact
Yes.
dialectic. There's a I feel it and I understand it and I see it in my students. There's this anxiety where if I don't feel that I have a total grasp of what I'm doing, in order to in order to calm that anxiety, I will just plan everything out perfectly and then I will execute it perfectly and then it'll be perfect, right? Um, that don't
God.
work. And
Yeah.
you end up going in a different direction and liking that direction more, as you were just saying. Similar thing with the magic systems thing, or the like Brandon Sanderson school of thought about like fantasy world building, to pick a name. Um, it has that really schematic quality, right? Like there's this idea that if I have everything make perfect sense, if I set up and follow the rules, and I'm very sensitive about the rules, then I will have made a perfect objective setting, and that's good fantasy. Um, I, you know, that's not my
Except
taste. That's not my taste.
no, a lot of people will say that, and they will often like say that they're drawing this from people like Tolkien, for example. They'll say, "Oh, that's how he did it," and it's like, no, man, because there were plenty of points where they would ask Tolkien, like, "And then what happens?" or "Why did that happen?" He'd be like, I don't know, dog. It's a story. Just he
Yeah,
would kind of like even he would hand wave it. Like even he didn't care. He made like languages. He made these geographies. He made these elaborate
yeah.
histories. And even he was like, just figure it out. Just
I think he has been profoundly misread. I think that there's like modern nerd culture has fundamentally misunderstood what he was doing, basically. But yes, no, I see what you're saying.
I
Um,
mean, it's look, if you look at it on a surface level, everyone what does everybody do? They see something that inspires them and they like it and they say, "Oh, I'll do it too." And then the first thing you do is you do a surface level reading because you haven't tried making it yet, so you don't know the realities of
mhm.
making a story. So
Yeah,
you just say, "Oh, I'll make a bunch of cool maps. I'll make a bunch of cool systems. I'll make a bunch of cool character folios. They're done. And then I'll put those together and then they'll work."
yeah.
It's kind of it's kind of like learning vocabulary before you learn grammar. But anyway, please continue.
No, that's a great analogy. Um, yes. So I mean, there is a part of me that has that satisfaction of like, seeing the map and seeing all the detail and imagining that all these little built systems fit together or whatever. But I am increasingly trying to like walk this line of presenting a setting that has the texture of a believable detail. But first and foremost, I am aware of it as a literary tool, and I'm trying to use it to express certain ideas. This is something that I was starting to figure out with the earlier stories, and it's something that I am more consciously working with in Third Voice, where Third Voice is a story that has a lot of different angles on the idea of like looking backwards or remembering or misremembering the past, right? So every character has their own relationship to this idea. The world itself is an expression of this idea. It is a setting that is in the vacuum of collapse of some power. It's undergoing all these sort of weird apocalyptic processes. These are not detail-y things for me to nail down. These are expressions of the broad ideas I want to work with. And then the detail can be sort of expressive. Detail is only interesting to me if it supports the ideas. And I think the reader only really retains detail if it supports the ideas, if it ties into a larger picture. So I have done the nerdy, detaily things of like making the map and nailing down a pretty complicated 1,000-year timeline and designing a functional invented language, but the reader does not. It's not a system for them to understand. It's just an array of tools that are at my disposal to push the core ideas of the story. With Third Voice in particular, it's kind of helpful to me that the main characters are like kind of marginal. They're not people who are directly connected to the high fantasy stuff. So that sort of helps keep me in check, maybe. But it's a literary tool. You're not really building a world because that would be, I mean, asinine.
No, it's look, I don't I'm trying to think of like an equivalent because the way you are describing for this, I want to ask. So, do you play any RPGs? Any I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons, Dungeon Crawl Classics, just any of those?
I've done a few like tabletop things. I've played a lot of old. console JRPGs.
And the reason why I'm asking is that the process that you're going about making the world, the way you're describing this, reminds me a lot of how people that are more experienced running these kinds of games make their worlds, where they instinctively understand, oh, I will develop the stuff that directly affects and interests the players. I will build up on the things that they pick up on and it's interesting for them, and I will go from there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the idea. That's how they're approaching this. And your approach is very much like how Dave Arneson made his first setting. He was the guy who was the grandfather of Dungeons and Dragons. He's the guy that started the first fantasy campaign, was made pretty much on the same principles that you're making your story. That's why I wanted to know, like, if you've done this. It's interesting that there's this.
I mean, you probably, I mean, people are led in similar directions. That absolutely makes sense to me. And I mean, there's obviously a trap in that medium of like, falling into the detail too much and losing sight of the fact that we're working with a small number of players and they're experiencing the story in a certain way. They're not experiencing a big picture of a world, whatever the fuck that means. And also, like, I'm invested in like my own understanding of reality, right? I don't have a we don't see the whole thing. Or according to your ideology, I'm not a person who believes that someone sees the whole metaphysical picture of reality.
No,
Uh,
absolutely not.
some people
Absolutely
do
not.
believe that, but
I think
like
there's one guy. I think there's one guy. I haven't brought him on the podcast yet, but maybe
oh,
there
who
is.
sees it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
It's
I don't
the
know. Yeah.
I don't know. Have you read the story The Aleph by
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, you've
Borges.
read, yeah, by Borges. God, where did I get stuck with the name? The entire story, it kind of reads like a shit post, but it's so, if you read it from the outside, but itself is like, it's mind blowing to read, but it reads like a shit post because it's a guy that shows up and he says, your building's getting condemned. He says, you can't condemn it. I have an Aleph in the basement. He goes in, he experiences like the totality of existence. He gets his mind blown, and then he comes up and he says, demolition schedule next week. And then he leaves. It's like, it's like a joke.
He's got a lot
Uh,
of shit post stories.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, wait, which else? The book,
The one about the
the
person
book of
who
Sands,
the one about the person who imagines an entire ruined structure. The Tlon Uqbar Orbis
Tlon,
Tertius.
yes, Tlon, yes.
That's a bit.
The city of the immortals.
Don't remember that one.
It's about a man. He's seeking immortality. He's a Roman soldier. He travels to the edge of the world. He finds the city of the immortals. He goes in. It's this nonsense city with like nonsense rooms and like, a weird situation. A bunch of like weird ape men all over. And he
Cool.
asks, and turns out it was the city where the gods used to dwell. But then these immortal idiots came in, destroyed it. They tried to remake it. They fucked it up. They make him immortal by accident, and then he spends the entire story trying to become mortal again and die. And in the end, he does it, and he doesn't know how. He doesn't know how he did it.
Oh,
So
that's great.
that's yeah, it's a very interesting story.
Library of Babel. That's a shitpost story.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
sorry. I haven't read him in a while, but I love him
No,
so
no, no.
much.
It's good to know. It's good to know, and it's good to hear this. And to be absolutely honest with you, um, and it might be like my bias, but I've been meeting too many creators. Not on this podcast. I try to curate the people I bring over. I meet a lot of creators that don't read and they don't experience other media, and a
Hmm.
lot of them kind of get stuck on the same six things, and they all end up kind of like making. The reason why a lot of pop culture feels samey is that a lot of people who are making stuff just all watch the same six things, so
I
they're
think
pod
that's
people.
true.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate reality. A lot of people don't read. I've had situations where because I work in video games, and I've worked with people who I would tell them like something they didn't know about. They'd be like, "Oh, Konstantine, you crazy!" Like,
Come
story
on.
they didn't know. I
You
had
got you got all you this is your inheritance, all this stuff. We have so much culture. You
no,
got
Evan. It's fine. It's fine, Evan. It's fine, Evan. I've watched Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm fine.
I mean
It's
it
fine, Evan.
rocks, to be quite honest, but
Yeah.
no, I have there's a special place in my heart for that weird fucking cartoon.
Um, will the timer is down at 8 minutes. So when it's close, I'll signal you. We'll stop, and then I'll call you again. Second
Sure.
round. Okay,
Great.
just give it 3 seconds for the editor. Okay, so your approach for a world, like we said, is more of a living world. You sort of like make the basis. You figure out the points. As I understand it, you figure out the points of conflict, right, for the characters. Is the impression I'm getting from your style.
The ideas, the thematic stuff, right? Like the big ideas that everything expresses is the bigger thing. But yeah, not the detail, the big stuff.
No, I understand because like if you know the big stuff, then you know what things you should pursue, what your characters pursue, what kind of people they are. Like for example, in Rice Boy, I really like, for example, TOE, which I assume you did it on purpose. He's a he's a likable character, even if he's horrifically flawed, because he's pursuing a crusade that's pointless, and he doesn't realize it until the end,
Hmm.
essentially. So uh, that's how I believe that's how you make interesting human characters. If you make them so they acknowledge their flaws and they understand their flaws and they make it a part of their personality and their journey.
I guess so. I don't feel like I have a good intellectual grasp of that sort of thing. I will say that like it's funny, TOE people really have latched onto over the years, and there's a few characters like that I have done where it always feels kind of cheap to have like the one guy in the story who is the totally cool, self-possessed, badass, masculine guy, right? Because it's easy to write that and it's like easy to sell that, I think. And it's there's an interesting misery in it, but it's not terribly complicated on its face. But people like really connect with it, and I connect with it too. But it's just
He's
it's not
not.
been it's not been like the main type of character that I have worked with. But it's funny to see how people relate to it,
But
I guess.
TOE is not. But that's the thing. TOE, the one electronic, he's one of the main characters in Rice Boy. For anyone who's not interested, he's who's interested and isn't following, hasn't read it yet. You
Or
should.
not
You should
interested.
read. You should read Rice Boy. No, no, you should. You should. It's great. You should read it to your kids, like I'm doing. Uh, he's interesting because he is, while he does appear to be a badass, the sword wielding badass and anything and everything, he gets his ass kicked. He's gotten people he loves killed. He's made terrible mistakes along the way.
Hmm.
And all his greatest milestones are where he stops fighting against it and he tries to be like a big badass, accepts his mistakes and keeps going.
I think
So,
I see what you mean. I was not metacognitive about this stuff back then. I could not have seen that was what I was doing back then. There's ways in which there's ways in which I kind of see that now. And with like Knock, this character in third voice, Knock is like this really cool, self-possessed, violent bounty hunter guy. But to me, there are ways that I see that as only working if it is contradicted somehow, if he's broken somehow, or made a fool of somehow, or fails, right? Because otherwise, what's the point? He's just an immovable object, kind of. That's a little bit how I think of it. I don't
so
know.
you never studied creative writing, right? You've been figuring this all as you go, as you read and as you
I've
write.
never formally, yeah.
No, it's interesting because like for a person that as you describe yourself this entire time we've been talking that you don't know anything, you don't know you're doing everything right. So that's why
I mean, I
that's
know, I feel it. I mean, I know when there's like potential energy in a character. I know when a character feels flat, I think. And I do, spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff as I work through it. I like, it's not like writing a novel where you map it all out and write it all down in the space of a few months or a year or whatever. I do all this
or
preliminary,
you never finish it. Yeah.
or you never finish it. I do all this planning, but then I am effectively writing and rewriting it over the course of the entire however many years I'm drawing it. So it's really fucking in there, and it looks a lot of different ways to me over the course of that time.
And how does the reader feedback factor into all this? Like how do you factor this in? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people that are writing have trouble asking for feedback and getting feedback.
Mm. It's not a big part of my life outside of my audience. Like I don't, I have a couple people that I like talk through ideas with, but I don't, it's mostly a thing that I do, myself. That's how it works for me. But, with Third Voice, I started running a Discord server. So there's like a space for more, kind of more dense conversation about the comic than there has been for years and years. So I've been getting feedback all this time over the course of the social media internet the past 15 years, but it's very, very loose and, simple and like limited to 140 characters or whatever. But now in Third Voice, I'm getting like routinely like pretty complicated little conversations going on, of which I'm not a part at all, about, what's just happened in the comic. And, there are ways in which seeing immediately what it looks like to people and seeing angles of it that I wouldn't have really seen is just like productive. It makes it kind of a bigger space for me. Um, it has not so far. I mean, they'll have like specific ideas of this or that is going to happen. Um,
The fanon, as we call it, the dreaded
yeah, yeah.
fanon. Yes.
And, that however they want to engage with it, that's great. They should think all they want, talk all they want about it. That's great. Uh, it hasn't occurred to me to like take reader input to the extent that I would take those ideas. But there is something more abstract about like seeing how, they point at things that I wouldn't have otherwise noticed. They make it a richer experience writing it, kind of. Um, yeah, but nothing I can really pinpoint. It's just, it's fucking privilege. I mean, it's really nice to have it and to make this thing like this. I don't know how else I would do it.
So you've been mentioning feedback, mentioning, your community, mentioning, building these. Um, a lot of, writing podcasts and a lot of podcasts about the creative industries don't really talk about the nitty gritty of being a creator for a living. And I do like to bring people over who, like I said, are working creators, kind of like introduce the audience to these ideas, what goes into it, how important these things are, because, we all have to learn this sooner rather than later. A lot of us stumble and fall a lot. Some of us never learn this. Some of us just think, oh, I'm just going to be making cool stories and money will come to me somehow. I'm going to make a living. So I want to ask you, like, how did you go about creating your community, getting your people together?
Well, let's see, the community question is, let's see, I mean, a lot of it I did build on the momentum of just starting 18, 19 years ago. I feel like there's a lot of readers that I have. There's people I still meet at comic conventions that have been reading me for, quite an extremely long time. So, there's that. But I think that the mechanism is basically that, I have made a space for myself to do a particular, ambitious and committed and kind of weird type of thing. And, I have demonstrated that I'm just going to keep doing that, and it's all I know how to do. So the people who are particularly interested will make an effort to, follow it. Um, the thing that I tell my students, because, there's a hustle element to this stuff that there didn't used to be, and there's this like,
No, no. Michelangelo used to hustle and sell fake statues.
oh no,
It's
I
Yeah,
know,
it goes way back. Don't worry
that's
about it. It's
true,
not new.
but there's there's a way in which it's determined by platforms. There's this hustling for the attention or for the, the contract opportunity of webtoons.com or whatever, which is very different from like hustling to make a lot of work that you own and that you're building an audience off of yourself that you can make money off of in some way yourself. Um, so a lot of the thing I try to advocate for people is like it does not matter what deal you get with this or that publisher or platform. The operative thing is just you're doing the thing that you are drawn to do. It's a lot of work, so find the way that you really like to do it. And probably you're not a totally unique person, so there will be other people who are interested in it in the same way you're interested in it, right? I mean, there's all sorts of mechanical questions in like how do you get your thing seen by those people? But that builds a career, you know? I mean, if you're if you're, running like a Patreon or something analogous to that, if you are selling an occasional self-published edition of a book, um, that's not a huge number of people that you need to be really invested in what you're doing to make it a career. Um, Big publishers and big platforms like Webtoons are interested in the tens of thousands or millions of eyeballs on the work, but that you don't need that, you know? I don't have
I was
that.
I was really hoping you'd say that. I was really hoping you'd say that.
I mean, if you're self-publishing and you're not splitting it with other people, and if you're in control and if you're advancing a career and advancing like an audience in kind of humble ways with attention to the work, then how much fucking, you're fine. It's not that dramatic or impossible, I don't think.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you bring this up, especially because uh, I started with publishing, regular traditional publishing. Started around 2010. And like Tony Soprano, I came in at the end. That was like when publishing was kind of like taking a huge downturn. Like around 2015, I kind of like everyone I knew and worked at publishing was either dead, insane, or bankrupt. It was like the three. There were no happy endings for any of those people. I don't even know what happened to most of them. The ones that aren't dead anyway. So sooner or later you realize that you need to do a thing on your own. You need to do a thing on your own terms, and you need to kind of like stand out, and you need to own your work. And going after a platform will just get you shackled into the platform's guidelines, and you might not be able to make the thing you want to make. You could be like like so many other people who still make interesting things and just use Webtoon and Tapas to promote their work. But I feel that since they don't get as many eyeballs on them, they lose steam, which is such a shame because, for example, there are webcomics like, for example, Tad Danger. Have you heard of that?
I don't think so.
No, it's called Tad Danger Substitute Ranger. It's amazing because it's a parody of the Power Rangers, and essentially it's when you have a Power Ranger team and one of your guys is missing, you bring in Tad, and Tad comes in. He has this weird Zord, and it just changes form to kind of fit like any mech to fight the enemy, but he always kind of like messes it up. He's like a guy for hire, right?
Mhm.
It does have a human element too. That's very interesting. Or like the Sisters, which is another great webcomic on Tapas, which is I think the best depiction of like wizards I've seen in like a webcomic. It's very interesting. The magic system is kind of like loosey goosey, but scary and dangerous and all that stuff. And Ted Danger, Smacky Jackson, the creator, is still going because he doesn't care that he does get millions of eyeballs. He's very commendable, and I want to bring him over sometime and have him talk about his process. But the creators of Sisters, for example, they gave up because apparently they were hoping maybe that they were going to hit it big. They were hoping that something was going to work out, and I'm guessing, I don't want to assume, but you understand.
Yeah. I mean, hit it big. What is hit it big? That's a psychological trap. Hit it big is reliant on like what? The institution is going to give you some stability or whatever, but think about it like the thing I want people to think about it is like you're building a thing consistently. You're building audience attention. You're building people's association of your name. You're building, cultural cachet. You could build that on these platforms or whatever. Maybe you never get an enormous amount of people reading you on this or that platform. Maybe you never get like an ad revenue sharing deal or a contract with this platform. You should probably not sign a contract with a Webtoons or a Tapas or a Webtoons at least. Um, but I don't know. People lose sight of this fact that like the operative thing is having your work out there, having a body of work, having people who are into it. You can get the access. Those people can find you in any fucking way. And then like, what's going to happen when Webtoons dies in like 4 or 5 years? Where are you going to be? You're going to have your work and your reputation, but you won't have that contract or whatever.
Exactly. And so what's it like for you having doing things still the old-fashioned way, just having your website and
Oh,
doing things on your website?
I still use a lot of these platforms. I cross post on Webtoon, and there is an audience there that is very does not have the same trajectory through comics or the same age that I have, and understands my work very differently. It's very cool to connect with them. Um, uh, but yeah, a lot of it is the same. I'm just trying to like really be mercenary about getting the stuff out there in a lot of different ways, and just like compromising in all these ways, like in terms of posting in shitty areas in order to not compromise on the work itself. Like reading my comics on Instagram feels like it would be very uncomfortable. But
It does. You do have a pretty good format, though. You do
I
have a
mean,
pretty good format because big frames, at least up until third voice. Simple backgrounds, one two characters every time. Condensed action that moves in bursts. So I think it would be good. You would work really well for Instagram,
it
my
reads
opinion.
well. I mean, I put up each scene there every week, and I think it reads okay. But I mean, I'm just trying to not worry too much about it and just put it in a bunch of places because why not?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, you should cast a wide as net as possible. That's absolutely true.
yeah, and because the thing you want, the platforms are as compromised as they are, but I'm just trying to connect with people who are particularly, interested enough in what I'm doing to actively make the effort at some point to follow it or to read all of it or whatever. And um, I appreciate that.
So, speaking of, because you're also working in print, you're also working in other mediums. Uh, how do you work with publishers? Do you work on a limited fashion? Do you prefer print on demand? Would you rather just switch to self-publishing all day? Like, what's your preference? What's been your experience?
Yeah, different projects demand different stuff, I think. Um, so I just self-published in print the first book of Third Voice, effectively a couple of weeks ago. It just came out. Print on demand does not make sense to me because the minimum order for an offset print job is like 1,000 copies, or the number at which it kind of makes sense, and I can commit to that. It just makes sense to commit to that. So that's been what I've done for self-published stuff mostly for most of my career. Uh, I like a lot of that. I like having control of how the book looks. I am obsessed with book design. Um, I don't have access to a lot of like distribution or promotion or time to figure it out, or access to a lot of promotion or distribution things for self-publishing, which is an impediment. But I mean, if I am only selling, if I'm only getting a print run of 1 or 2 thousand books, then how well do they have to be distributed? But
Also,
there
keep in
are,
mind you are a team of one.
sure, no, but I do work with Topatico, this company in Massachusetts that uh, they've done a lot of fulfillment and stuff for web comics and like internet media broadly. They're great, and they do fulfillment, and they help me with some like printer interface, like print buying stuff. So in that way, I am not in that area. I am not a team of one, but um, there are other projects where it has made sense to work with a publisher. Um, I did those books for first, second books over several years ago that like, they have access to distribution and promotional tools that were very exciting to me. I've done a couple books for Iron Circus, who is effectively my friend Spike. I've known Spike, who runs that company, for like longer than anybody I've known in comics, basically. And I just very much know her aesthetic, and there are certain books of mine that I am happy to work on for her. It's a smaller outfit. It's a small independent comics outfit, so well, not small. It's a large independent comics outfit,
Yeah, that I
but
was gonna say about
but
first,
the
the ones that you mentioned, they're smaller than Marvel and DC. That's true. That's
well,
factual.
no, and
Yes.
they're small compared to First Second, which is Macmillan, right? So
Yes, exactly.
the operative point is that Macmillan can afford to give me a $20,000 advance or whatever, but basically any English language comics publisher that isn't tied to a big book publisher is not going to be able to do that. But it's been great to do books with them because then I don't have to worry about a lot of the process, and they're very good at a lot of the stuff that I'm not very good at, promotion wise in particular. And I'm happy with how those have turned out.
Do you feel that I mean, no, wrong. I started the question wrong. What I want to say is it's very important that you're a single person doing this job. It's a small team. And a lot of the times, a lot of people that start to do something on their own, they make this mistake, and I see it consistently across the board in RPGs, in games, in comics, in everything, where they just put together a team like they're doing a heist, and then they'll make something and they'll make some money, and they won't have anything left by the end of it because they have to like repay everything. They have issues with fulfillment. They have issues with logistics. People don't understand this, and how has it been for you doing this thing by yourself? Uh,
Mhm.
have you found it difficult to get like all those cross skills and being able to find people to help you?
Um, the areas in which I find it difficult, I just kind of haven't done it. Like, I did find it difficult to do f order fulfillment myself, and it's a miracle to be able to work with Topatico to do that. It occasionally occurs to me that it would be fun to like work with somebody on something, but yeah, it's a lot to you worry about, you know, making that all work and making everybody creatively involved to the appropriate extent or whatever. I don't know. My default thing is, I mean, comics to me is the area in which I am totally domineering and in control, and I would not be good at working with somebody probably, or I would be rude about it. So it's kind of like all of this is just a way of making space for myself to do that, kind of. I don't know.
I mean,
Um,
you have your vision. Look, it happens. I see a lot of people who are working creatives who are doing something by themselves. Some of them are lucky to share your trajectory where, they kind of get to do their thing almost from the get-go. Some other people have been working for other teams, then they get their break, and then they're like, just screw all of you guys. I'm doing my thing with blackjack and hookers.
mhm.
So they both share this idea. Everybody has their singular vision. They have their skills. They have this thing, and they have trouble articulating what they want on the one hand. Sometimes it's because of enthusiasm. And the second thing is, you don't want to compromise on your idea. And when you don't want to compromise on your idea, that's what happens.
Yeah. And you're compromising in a million different ways, but I like being the one person that does it who can decide what those ways are, I guess. And like the thread of like interest is very delicate. Like it's my job and I have to do it. Um, but it kind of only works if I'm like, extremely intensely on board with it, if I have the whole picture in my head and if I'm like excited about it and if the actual process of doing it is fun. And if I'm doing it all myself, I can preserve that and it can go in the direction that works for me. I have never, I don't know, any sort of interpersonal interaction in my life is a little bit too stressful to guarantee that I would be able to preserve that. I've never collaborated with someone to an extent where that has really clicked. I don't even know what that would look like. I'm basically not a social person in that way, I think. Um, I don't know if that exactly addresses what you were saying. That's just
No, no,
an angle on it.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, and it happens very often when you work creatively. You have trouble putting together what you want and how to make it happen. And like you said, sometimes art and the vision impacts on functionality, and you have to find a way to make it work, and you have to make it happen.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, like you said, you have to stay interested and you have to finish it. You have to put it out. It has to get done, right?
Mhm.
The work needs to get done. It doesn't matter what your grand vision is. It doesn't matter how perfect you want to make it. It's
Oh,
I
and
don't remember.
I
Sorry,
want it
you
to
go.
get done. I mean, yeah, no, why am I taking issue with this? You're phrasing it as the work needs to get done. I guess so, but like, I want to be doing it.
No, no, no. I know
I've
absolutely.
built
That's
this
what I
whole thing
mean.
about, yeah, yeah. No, I follow you. Yeah.
No, no. That's what I'm saying. Is I'm not saying it's you're slacking. I'm saying that it's your work. It's your job. You're working creative. So at the end of the day, there's this quote. It says, "Perfect is the opposite of done."
Hmm.
You can go to get perfect. That's why I'm saying I also wanted to talk to you because I've spoken to too many artists who always chase about getting the thing right and obsess over it,
Hmm.
and at the end of the day the work is never finished.
And as a notably imperfect artist, I can see why you would want to talk to me.
No, no, I
No,
don't.
no,
Come
no.
on, I didn't mean that at all. Come
No, no,
on.
it was funny to point out though.
No, no,
Um,
no, I do.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I used to be really like, this is a part of the third voice thing to me. I used to be really uptight about, for all that I've been talking about improvisation, I still really had in my head this idea of a graphic novel as a finished, polished thing, right? It's a novel. It's a whole, there's a beginning, middle, end. It is a statement. It takes place. It's a concrete statement outside of the history of its production. It's been exciting for me since starting to wrap my head around third voice to like really figure out to embrace serialization and to embrace this like this vision of the thing as a process. And that's why I keep talking about improvisation. And like, yeah, there are ways in which it is not going to be perfect and tight in ways that it would be if I had mapped it all out perfectly. But on the whole, it will exist the way that it exists because that's the world that it exists
But
in.
that's how it should be.
And
That's
that
how it
is how
should
it
be. It
should
should
be.
be. It should exist the way it exists.
Yeah. No, and
I I
there are ways in which it will be richer and more enormous than it otherwise could be because of this serialized forward approach.
Sure, I'm sure. Look, I'm sure everything could always be better. Like to Warren Ellis had a great quote where he said, "You do all your best rewrites after the book's out."
Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand how it is, but at the end of the day, you're making a fantasy epic, and the thing that we're getting is the best possible thing we can get. And I am absolutely sure all your audience is thankful for it. And of course, like every creative, you always say, "Oh, I could have done more. I could have done something different." But the reality of the situation is, yeah, sure. But at the end, you created something and you gave it to people, and people read it and enjoy your work. That's the important part that's there. You get to pay the power bill from it. Even more important,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't think talking to you, after talking to you, I don't think your style is improvisational. I just think that you are stumbling into a proper format and process uh, because you are doing it as a working creator. You are kind of like stumbling through the proper steps to all to do it. But because you've had to do it by yourself, you think you're improvising, where actually, you are following, you are developing a method.
No, I think
Uh,
that's fair. I see what you mean. I can just identify there are improvisational aspects to this, but when I say that, I mean it sounds that it's more made up as I go along than it is. I
well,
see
I
what you mean.
mean, all of creativity is like this. Come on, man. Just
I think that's
everybody,
true.
everybody makes it up as they go along. I mean,
I think that's true. And there's this anxious thing that people have about like trying to stifle that or trying to control that. But that's what it is. That's the raw material, you know?
you know what it is. We all are trying to make it big. We all are falling through the same thing, and we're all like, if I find the right process, the right thing, the right book, it's going to help me. Like,
Hmm.
I got my copy of Save the Cat back there, and I tried writing a screenplay once, and I tried going, okay, I have the outline. I'm going to do the scene. It's going to be like all the scenes, and then I'm doing it. After I do it, I'm like, I hate this. I'm not doing this, and I wrote a screenplay whatever way, and I'm probably just gonna make into a comic or something because I doubt anyone picks it up. But I had more fun, and that screenplay got made. The Save the Cat one, I never even bothered to start it. I didn't even care about it.
Yeah. Interest is the thing. I mean, like, it's the most powerful force, being
You you s-
interested in something, you know?
you said this in the beginning. You need to want to make the thing so much that it carries you through the process of doing it.
I mean, yeah, otherwise I wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
What would carry me? I guess getting paid a lot, maybe. I don't know. That's how it often works.
nah, I don't know how many people actually, do it for a long enough time or their heart is into it after some time, especially if you're in the indie scene. If you're in the indie scene, you have to have your own identity, personality, and style. You can't just go on forever. You can't
Hmm.
just say, I'll follow a thing. You have to want to do it to put up with it. Um, yeah. Evan, thank you very much for coming over. This has been very enlightening. Good to be able, like I said, talking with more working creatives. It's what I intend to do. I'd like you to plug your stuff now and all the awesome stuff you have on your website and everywhere else.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. Nice to talk to you. Um, all I'm doing right now is Third Voice. I serialized that at rice-boy.com. But if you look up Third Voice comic, you can find it. Book just came out. I've done several self-published graphic novels. This is the one where I finally figured out how to properly pre-press a color graphic novel. It looks great. I'm so happy with it. Please check it out. Um, I don't know. That's it. My comic Vatu has a new edition that's starting to come out with Iron Circus Comics. I have a couple other books out with Iron Circus Comics over the past couple years, but Third Voice is the thing that I want people to check out and read if they're interested, basically.
Absolutely check it. It's at the top of Evan's page. Looks amazing. Has a little blue guy on the bicycle. You can't miss it. But Vado's great too. I've also ordered the book for it. Rice Boy is a classic. Harrowing of Hell also I can't recommend, even if you're not a practicing Christian. It's a pretty great story. Um, but yeah, uh, thank you very much for coming. Everybody, have a good one, and we'll see you.